Lay down. Down by your ass. Look at you, look at you. You're jumping around like a fucking pussy, bro.
Look at this shit, dude. I'm getting all these NPCs behind me.
What is up, Gorilla Nation? It is Relentless here, bringing you yet another Division 2 build video. If you happen to be new to the channel, or you're just enjoying the content, then please be sure to ground and pound that like and subscribe button. Also, reach up there, trigger the bell, and turn on post notifications, so that way you never miss a live stream or a video that is uploaded. Well, since Title Update 6 dropped, everybody and their grandma has been rushing to get that once oldie but goldie, the Papago build, thrown back together because, as you can see, if you go anywhere in the dark zone, that's basically around 75 to 80% of what everybody is using. Some form and variation, but typically you'll find your basic berserk with your new talents or whatnot from Title Update 6 sprinkled in, but some just are happy with the basic. Now that is why I first initially went with the three-piece Negotiator's Dilemma with berserk, and then sprinkled in clutch, and even went with the Unbreakable. But a lot of people hate that. But even though it is a lot of fun, beggars can't be choosers, and the main important thing is have fun. But I was asked to do basically a standard berserk. Dude, get off of me. I'm trying to do a build video. I will talk to you about your woman problems later, but hands off Mendoza. She is mine. Now leave me alone. I'll be with you in a minute. Anyways, moving on. So I was asked to do a pretty much basic berserk build and kind of put my little twist and make one according to my playstyle and my, as I would say, potato aim, because no, I do not think I'm anywhere close to being really good at PvP, but 9 times out of 10 I can hold my own. Dude, seriously? Alright, I ain't talking to you about Mendoza. Screw you. Anyways, back to the actual build. So this is the basic interpretation with accompanied with my potato aim. It's not min-maxed whatsoever, but it gives you a good idea and a simple blueprint, because the way the builds are now, we all have a roadmap, and the X marks the spot as far as the destination. Now, how you get to that destination is up to you. There are tons of roads and highways all leading to that same destination, and that would be the Berserk Clutch, but how you get there is up to you and according to your playstyle. So let's hop into it. Now I have two different weapons. I've been trying out the M4, and not just the M4 by itself, but with Measured and Allegro. And it's at 19K, 935, and 50 round mag. The top half of the magazine has 20% rate of fire and minus 15% weapon damage. That is what you see on the screen. The bottom half of the magazine is negative 20% rate. Really? Dude, I'm about to take you outside and whoop your ass if you don't quit leaving me alone. Anyways, moving on. The bottom half of the magazine is 20% less rate of fire, but you get 30% total weapon damage. And when you accompany that with Allegro, and that's 10% rate of fire, then you're not really losing all too much, and you're getting some weapon damage on the top end. It kind of spits it out. But then my other go-to is the FAMAS. 20.5K, 990 RPM with Sadist and Allegro. And the reason why I have Sadist on here, because if you play with anybody, status effects are the main thing right now. So if somebody in your team is running a hive, or anything that inflicts bleed, then Sadist is actually a good fit. Deal 30% weapon damage to bleeding enemies. And then of course, if you kill a couple NPCs first and wait for that, somebody to flag rogue on you, then initially that fourth target that you hit is going to automatically be put on bleed. And now if you switch back and forth like I do, then you would want greased on your sidearm. That will increase your swapping weapon speed. Or you can just go with like the basic as far as protected reload and things of that nature, whatever is according to your playstyle. Now I do have a mask that I'm trying to find one or replicate it to a certain extent, except for with a blue in the place of the skill haste, and of course I don't need a surge. I'm not really going off any talent. Now the idea one that I would want to go to would be concussion, because I have the requirements met. It requires 7 or more offensive Legos, and even though I'm running an AR, you can land multiple shots within 2 seconds with that RPM. So with each hit, you get 15% headshot damage for 2 seconds. So that little extra damage does come in handy. I'm just looking for a mask to go along with this one, because if I do switch to this one, yes, my crit chance would be significantly higher. I would actually be over crit chance cap, but it would reduce my health to 216.2k. Now, if that skill haste happened to be health, then we were good to go. But in the meantime, I went with the aces and 8s. Since I'm not utilizing any talent on it anyways, it was a better option. It had 5.5% crit hit chance and 26,552 health. And now, that's the only, I guess, outlier as far as something that doesn't really go and synergizes with the rest of the build, except for having health and of course the crit chance. Because with any berserk clutch build, you want as most crit chance as you can get, preferably at 60% crit chance cap. Then when it comes to berserk is on more or less on a health pool side, where you do have these builds that are all spec'd into armor and that correlate with that, such as things like Unbreakable, Bloodsucker, Unstoppable Force. Those all are more armor builds. Now the only exception when it comes to berserk not speccing all the way into health instead of armor is when it comes to the likes of, say, shotguns. And the reason I say that is because shotguns already have a high base damage, so therefore only 10% from losing 20% of your armor is a big significant chunk of weapon damage, especially if you already have a shotgun hitting for 300k. So only in the case of a shotgun, more or less, then you would want to kind of be even spread over armor and health, or all armor and at least have somewhat of health, so that way it'll increase your survivability. But on this particular Wybenware chest piece, I have 59,596 health, 7.5% crit hit chance, and 6% weapon damage. It was a pretty good chest piece. That's why I was like, hadn't really seen too many people run a Wybenware chest and actually have berserk on it. Now there are perfect berserk chest piece out there if you're on that Easter egg hunt kind of thing, but it only gives you 2% weapon damage for every 20% max armor. So all in all, you get an average of around 10% more damage once berserk is fully procced, but that's basically it. It's not really needed. It's one that if you're trying to really min-max your build, then that is something you need to go for, and it's only found in the Dark Zone so far. But this particular chest piece has 2 offensive mod slots versus a Fenris would only have 1. So, and these 2 offensive mod slots, as you can see, combined, I get another 13% weapon damage for a total of 19% weapon damage going to my AR just on this chest piece. Now moving on to the holster. The holster, I have 41,201 health, and since I'm utilizing an AR and it's a little bit more complicated to actually hit that crit chance cap when you're running AR, because you don't necessarily have attachments besides the laser pointer that gives you crit chance on them. So I went with the easy route with surgical, and surgical is plus 10% crit hit chance, so that way, you know, I don't have to spec into it. And since this Wybenware piece only had 1 attribute, that is why I opted in for the health, because it was more beneficial. Now if I didn't want that health and I could switch things up, then I would go with the likes of this chest piece. As you can see, I already have 16% crit chance on it, and then it already has surgical. Now if I can get a hold of one that has 2 attributes on it, and then, you know, mix and match, you know, different things here and there, but still have an offensive mod slot, then, you know, beggars can't be choosers. But I do not think one exactly exists out there in the Wybenware brand set that actually has 2 attributes on them and a talent. But with this offensive mod slot, I have another 6.5% AR damage. Now on to the third and final piece of Wybenware. It is the Wybenware gloves. 12% assault rifle damage and 3% crit chance. And then, of course, clutch. Critical hits restore 20% missing health and repair 1% missing armor. Requires 4 or less defensive Legos. And that is basically I guess the hardest part of making a berserk clutch build, is limiting yourself to only 4 defensive Legos and then trying to stack on as much crit chance as possible. Now this was just the easiest for me, but like I said, there are different roadmaps and they all lead to the same destination. Now if you wanted to go without summit gloves here and with clutch, because they have an offensive mod slot, if that's something you want to do, then by all means go for it. But in this case, since I needed a third wipe and wear piece, and my holster was a little lacking, I mean my mask was a little lacking, so that's why I opted in and just used the gloves instead. But once I get, like I said, once I get those right Legos on a mask, then I will apply this 11% crit chance on a actually wipe and wear mask, and we'll go to that Alps Summit just for that additional extra damage from that offensive mod slot. Now on to the backpack. The backpack has 34,708 health, 6.5% crit hit damage, and 3.5% weapon damage. If you have better backpacks out there, then your numbers will reflect that, and your probably weapon damage is going to be a lot stronger, especially if you have over 3.5% weapon damage on your backpack. But we're utilizing Vital, plus 25% health, and Spark, damaging enemies with skills or explosive grants 15% weapon damage for 15 seconds, requires 9 or more offensive Legos. I have 12. And of course, a utility mod slot. And you can go basically with anything you want to. I just threw a utility mod in there. Currently, I do have one that gives me 7% extra reload speed. There's really no right one to actually fit in here. It just all depends on what you're running and what you prefer. But yeah, since it's a utility, then I would actually go probably with reload speed. But moving on. Now to the knee pads. The knee pads are the only piece of finish that I have on here. Because of that one piece, I get 10% assault rifle damage. Now the attributes are 9% crit hit chance, and then restorative, plus 30% health on a kill. And that 30% health on a kill will actually come in handy, especially if you wanted to go with the likes of any kind of PvE activities, then, you know, mowing down NPCs, or as many NPCs that are in the dark zone pestering the crap out of you when you're trying to PvP, then yeah, downing them, dispatching them while, you know, you continue to PvP or wait for the other crowds to come back out of the checkpoint, then the 30% health will come in handy most definitely. And then of course, Composure. Composure is while in cover grants 10% total weapon damage, requires 11 or more offensive Legos. And that comes out really handy, especially if you're in cover and shooting from cover, which is, you know, is the better option to do the way things are, unless, you know, you're one of those zigzagging figure skaters on, you know, the whole shotgun thing, and, you know, just like trying to face trade thinking it's Division 1 all over again. So Composure definitely comes in handy, but, you know, if you could, you know, pass up on the 10% extra weapon damage from in cover and prefer the likes of maybe Cloaked for when you do get pushed on. And Cloaked, I think I have a yep, right here. If you want to use Cloaked instead, that'll help you out with disrupting enemy skills when you get pushed. And it is when your armor is depleted, nearby enemy skills are disrupted for 10 seconds, can occur once every 30 seconds. Requires 5 or less utility Legos, and I only have 1. So if you find yourself in the dark zone, and you're constantly getting pushed and someone's all up in your face trying to, you know, double tap with the shotgun, use that, you know, clutch thing or whatever, or, you know, stand in their piss pulls, use a defender drone. Well, since, you know, you want your armor popped anyways, because that's how you get the most bang for your buck when it comes to Berserk, once your armor is all gone, you have the full proc of the damage from Berserk. So at the same time, simultaneously, it'll send out a disrupt for 10 seconds and will disrupt them to where, you know, if they are running the defender drone, then that defender drone will be no more. They won't be able to drop any piss pools and stand them on fire. They're going to be crap out of luck, and they're going to have to retreat or stand there and just, you know, take their chances and hope they can down you and hope you have potato aim like I do, and then, you know, they win the gunfight. But it's always good to have 2 different options based on the people that you run into, because you should be able to think on your feet and have something to counter what you encounter in the dark zone, such as, you know, if you're shooting from cover but yet, you know, you're constantly getting pushed upon, then you can have something already set up and then easily switch over to Cloak. So it's always good to have your options depending on who you face. And I think that pretty much covers it. Like I said, it all depends on your personal playstyle, but this was really easy to throw together. The most highest health rolls that you're going to get on any pieces do definitely come from Alps Summit, so go farm them. And the most health that you can get on particular pieces, you would want them on your chest, your backpack, and your holster will be the main 3. Now it's basically a toss-up between your knee pads, your mask, and of course your gloves. Like I have 26,000 on my mask. I've seen that same amount on knee pads. There's also percentage numbers that are actually come on knee pads as well. So just basically whatever is at your disposal and whatever's best for you with what pieces you have. Now let's go over the character sheet. Now starting with the FAMAS, as you can see, I'm only at 50% crit chance, and as I've shown you, that is because of that mask. That mask has 11% crit chance on it, so as soon as I find a weaponware piece to replace it, then I'm going to be over crit chance cap, and then also I'll gain an offensive mod slot with ophthalmic gloves to further my damage. Now let's go to the police M4. Stats are the same as far as when it comes to crit chance, crit damage, and headshot damage. Since I'm using both double ARs, I have 15.5% all weapon damage and then 57% assault rifle damage, and that is due just to low weapon rolls on my backpack and chest piece. But I can pretty much accumulate 15% more weapon damage on that, and it works out really, really well. But you kind of make up for what you miss out, especially if you use Composure while you're in cover, and of course your crit. Because if you can't shoot, it means you can't crit, and if you can't crit, you can't pretty much self-heal from clutch. So always keep that in mind. But also when it comes to clutch builds, AR versus SMG, the AR does have that built-in 29% damage to health. So if you're running up against someone with pretty much the exact same stats as you do, but they're running SMGs, and let's say you both are perfect with your shots, you'll end up downing him before he downs you, just because your AR is doing more damage straight to his health pool because you have that baked in 29% health damage. And 4.5% explosive damage, not really much, and that's the rest of it. But I think I've covered pretty much most of everything. The counters, more or less, to the clutch berserk fiasco, I would call it, would be definitely status effects, because in order to put hazard protection on a berserk clutch build and still limit underneath that 4 defensive Legos, then they're going to have to substitute a chunk of health and actually have to put in hazard protection. That's why generally not too many people run hazard protection on a pure berserk clutch build. Also, stagger. Stagger, when it comes to like Seeker Mines, even if it don't inflict a status effect, staggering your enemy in the dark zone will cause them to stop shooting, and thus the whole stagger. And if they can't shoot, they can't crit. If they can't crit, they can't heal, and it's easy peasy. So if you constantly are getting harassed by berserk clutch builds, then just put on something with status effects like the Hive or whatever, and something that also inflicts stagger, because the stagger will get them basically every single time. But this is my take on it. I've showed you the pros and the cons, the things to improve upon, and basically it's whatever is your playstyle. But this is my interpretation of it. It's not quite exactly where I want it to be. Just got to switch up a few pieces, but I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it's answered all your questions for those that were requesting me just to do a pure berserk clutch build. I hope I've succeeded in that task, and we'll see you guys fudging later.